Today we will hear the story of a brave and faithful man chosen by God to lead his people. Before he became a leader, he was Moses' helper and trusted God with all his heart. He was one of the 2 spies who believed that God would surely give his people the promised land. Because of his courage and obedience, God chose him to lead Israel after Moses. God said to him, "Be strong and courageous. I will be with you wherever you go." His life shows us what it really means to trust and obey God. His name was Joshua. Yalan ran Trabakar. After God's people had wandered at the Big Serti Desert for 40 years, they finally stood at the edge of a brand new beginning. They were looking at the wide, rushing Jordan River, and on the other side was the beautiful land God had promised them. Their brave leader, Moses, had gone to be with God, and now a new leader stood before them. His name was Joshua. Joshua was a good man who always helped Moses. He was a little nervous, but he loved God very much. One day, God spoke to Joshua's heart. In a gentle, strong whisper, "Joshua, my friend, God said it's your church to lead. Be strong and full of courage. Don't be afraid, as I, your God, will be with you every single step of the way. Every place your footsteps will be yours. I will never leave you." Joshua took a deep breath, puffed out his chest, and decided to be brave. To all the people had said, "Get ready, in 3 days we will cross this river and explore our new world." But the promised land wasn't empty. It was filled with strong cities that had walls taller than 10 giants stacked on top of each other. The biggest, strongest city was called Jericho. Joshua, being a good leader, decided to be smart. He sent 2 brave spies secretly into Jericho to see what it was like. Where the spies had to hide because the king's guards were looking for them. They saw the hostile braids a bit wall where a woman ate Rahab lived. We had the spies understands a flat sutter roof. When the guards gate your door, she said the meg you're looking for they already left. After the guards left, Rahab told the spies, "Everyone in the sea is here by a Joe. We've heard stories about how your dart being trapped through the sea. Art fart up routed like I saw Sabi day. Please promise me that what you can't produce savory in my family." The spies promised. "Just your help us. We will help your tire bright bread broke your ribbo. When we see it, although which house is yours, that everyone inside will be safe." Rahab happily agreed, and helped to climb down the wall with a rope. The spies returned to Joshua that said, "Joshua, it's true. Everyone is afraid of us. God has definitely given us the land. Now it's time to cross the Jordan River." There was a problem. The river was deep, flowing fast. It was the rainy season, and the water was higher than usual. God gave Joshua special instructions. Tell the priest to carry the Ark of the Covenant. One special gold chest? Step into the water first. Joshua told the priests. They obeyed her. Give more pours after of the bushing water. As sure as the toes of their sandals touched the river, something magical happened. The water upstream began to pile up in a great heap, as if an invisible wall was holding it back. The water downstream flowed away. The riverbed became dry, solid ground. All of God's people walked right across the Jordan River on dry land, just like their parents had crossed the Red Sea. It was an amazing miracle. After they crossed, they set up camp at a place called Gilgal. God told them it was time for a special ceremony to show they were his people. Then, they celebrated with a big feast called Passover. For the first time in 40 years, they ate food from the new land instead of the matted God set in the desert. The past was behind them. Their new adventure had begun. But ahead of the ruins, the giant walls of Jericho, Joshua was looking at the huge walls, wondering how they could ever get inside. We saw a man standing nearby with a shiny sword in his hand. Joshua walked up to him. Are you on our side or on the side of our enemies? He asked. The monk smiled a glorious smile. I am not on anyone's side. I am the commander of the army of all. Joshua immediately knew this was a mighty angel. He fell to his knees of respect. Take off your saddest, angel said, for the place where you are standing is holy. Joshua did. Then angel told him God's very special, very surprising plan, the city of Jericho. The next morning, Joshua called all the people together. Listen carefully. He said, "This is God's battle plan. We are not door to fight with swords today. We are going to march." The people were confused, but they trusted God, Joshua. So for 6 days, this is what they did. The brave soldiers marched up before 7 priests walked behind. Rolling loudly are trumpets made of ravens' horns. Behind the priests carried the special bark tug, and behind all the people followed. They marched one full circle around the huge wall of Jericho. The whole time they were completely silent. Not a single shout will word. When they were done, they just went back to their camp. The people inside Jericho must have been so confused they peeked over the walls each day, watching this silent parade. What are they doing? That Crawford whispered. On the 7th day, they got up extra early. This time, God told them to march around the city not once, but 7 times around they went. Once, twice, 3 times. It must have taken all morning. Their feet were probably tired, but they kept going as God said to them 7 times around. Just as they finished, Joshua gave a signal. "Get ready," he yelled, shouting, "for the Lord has given you the city." All the people took a giant breath and let out the biggest, loudest, most enormous shout you could ever imagine. It was a roar face joy. And then, shoved incredible hapsy, the drum began to shake, then rumble. The giant strong, tall walls of Jericho began to wobble and shake towards rucksack or fell. And with a tremendous crumble crash, boom, the entire wall fell down flat. Every single part of it, well, almost every car. One small section of the wall stayed standing. Can you guess which one? That was the part where Rahab's house was. The bright red rope was hanging from her window just like she promised. The 2 spies hurried to her house and brought her and all of her family to safety. If she had faith, she became part of God's family. The city was won, not by swords and fighting, but by listening to God and obeying's unique plan. After the great victory of Jericho, Joshua and the Israelites had many more adventures yet to fight other battles in the new land. Some tribes they won easily because they remembered to ask God for help. One time, they lost a small battle because one man named Achan had disobeyed God's rules. Joshua learned that listening to God every single time was the most important thing. In one amazing battle, they were fighting, and it was almost nighttime. Joshua knew they needed more daylight to win. So filled with faith, he prayed a crazy, brave, rare sun stand still over Gibeon, and moon stop over the valley of Ajalur. And God listened. The sun and the moon actually stopped in the sky. The day became wrong, and Joshua's army won the battle God was fighting for them. After many years, when all the fighting was over and the land was safe, Joshua was now a very old man with a long gray beard. It was time to divide the beautiful new land upon all the families and tribes of Israel. One of the first people to come forward was Joshua's old friend, Caleb. Caleb was also an old man, but he was still strong and brings. Caleb said, "Remember 45 years ago when Moses sent us to spy out this land? We were the only two who said we can do it with God's help. The others were too afraid. Well, I am just as strong now as I was then, so give me my mouth. There might be giants living there, but with God's help, I can drive them out." Joshua smiled at his brave friend. He gave Caleb the mouth. He asked, "Do you know where Caleb, 85 years young, fought the giants at work? He and his family lived happily on that out because he never stopped trusting God." When Joshua was very, very old, he gathered all the people together for one last talk. He reminded them of all the amazing things God had done for them, holding back the Jordan River, toppling the walls of Jericho, making the sun stand still. You have a choice to make, Joshua said. You could choose to forget God and follow the pretend gods of this world, or you could choose to love and serve the Lord who has done so much for you. Like Joshua said, the most famous words that families still say today. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. All the people promised, we will serve the Lord too. We will never forget him. So, Joshua led a long, happy life, full of courage and faith. He led God's people into their Iwal, just as God had asked, showed that the secret to be brave isn't about getting the strongest, but about trusting the one was strongest of all. Through Joshua's story, we learn that God always keeps his promises. The walls of Jericho fell, the people found rest in the land, and God's blessings filled their lives. Just as God was with Joshua, he is with us today. Where we face big challenges, we can remember these words: be strong and courageous. God is always with you. That's the true strength and courage that comes from trusting in him.